Well, it is 1 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're streaming on Facebook Live. I am Kristen Agan. I'm the team leader of Keller Williams Gulf Beaches and one of the leadership members of the Keller Williams Chadwick group. And I am so excited to be having a conversation today with Drew Carlyle, one of our Associate Leadership Council members, shareholders, and just all around great guy. That's the nicest thing I've said to you in a long time, isn't it? No, I'm joking. So I just want to set this up a little bit. We are for the agents and by the agents, right? And this whole idea of having an agent spotlight has come out of our productivity committee from our ALC, with the idea of we want to model after people who are doing things right and having successes in our business. And Drew was somebody that our productivity committee said, we want to hear what Drew is doing to reach the success, overcome the obstacles, and just create a successful, healthy business that he's created. So the questions that I'm asking today have also come from our productivity committee. I will try not to go off script yet. You know me, Drew, so we'll see.
No promises.
No promises, no promises. So we're gonna start. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I want to give you some kudos to start out and share some things. In 2019, I have that you personally sold $9 million. I think it was over 10 million as a team, correct?
As the team, yeah, it was a little over.
Yeah,
10,
yeah. So far in 2020, you've booked over 3 million in the first quarter.
Correct.
And in the last 12 months, if we look at the last 12 months, you're at 11.4 million with 14 listings, 22 buy side for a total of 36. And we'll talk about this more later. My most exciting part of all of that is knowing what the previous year looked like.
Right.
So I'll let you talk about that. And what that means is right now your average price point is $317,000.
There we go. That was
there you go.
Last year. Kristen knows that my goal was to increase my price point, and I did it significantly.
Right. So we'll talk more about that as we go. Let's start with, how long have you been in real estate, Drew Carlyle?
16 and a half years. I started up in Atlanta and was with Coldwell Banker for about 2.5, 3 years before I joined Keller Williams in Atlanta. And then I've been down here for a little over 8 years.
A little over 8 years. So tell us a little bit, before I get to the next question, are you an individual agent? Do you have a team? Who do you work with? Tell me about that.
Right. So I do have a team. I actually got started in real estate with my parents. My stepdad, who used to be the broker and owner of our St. Pete Beach location, had gotten his real estate license. And about a year later, my mom and I both got our licenses to join him in his business. And then at a point about 9 years ago, he moved down here, and then my mom followed. And so I was kind of running the team in Georgia while they were running the team in Florida. And then I decided to join them full time down here.
So now
Bob's retired. So my mom still sells some, but she's my full-time admin. I have her on payroll. And then I have Tatiana, who's on this call. She's our buyer's agent. And I have another agent, Teresa, that's sort of semi-retired and does a few deals a year, and we help her out. So she's sort of a listing / buyer specialist on the team.
Okay, very good. So truly a family affair.
Yeah.
And your team has grown over this past year as well. You've filled in some openings that you and I have been talking about for a long time.
Right,
so
right. Yeah. Finding a buyer's agent is difficult, and matching up with the right person, I think we found her in Tatiana.
Very good. That's wonderful. So tell me, and we're going to talk a little bit about your business in what has been, I don't want to call it normal, what your normal business has been, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what has changed with the new world that we're living in right now. Does that sound fair? So Tell me what in your business a day in your life looks like.
Yeah, so I'm pretty regimented. Typically, I'd go into the office every morning, right around 8:45 to 9 o'clock, get right on the phones, and I'm on the phones nonstop from 9 to noon. Religiously, everybody makes fun of me, go to lunch right at 12 every day, come back to lunch, and then it's either appointments in the afternoon, or if I don't have appointments, I'm right back on the phone again, just making more phone calls until
Yes.
5:30, 6 o'clock, just depending.
You do have a couple of reputations in our office, and that is one that you are always on the phone. If you're in the office, you're on the phone, and that we don't mess with your lunch hour, although I do it to you all the time. So I at least I take responsibility, Drew. All right. So how has your day-to-day routine changed since the stay-at-home order started?
Right. So it's just a lot more calls with the team, checking in. Obviously, all these Zoom meetings and Zoom calls. So same thing. I mean, I'm up and at it and dialing on the phone from home from 9 to noon still. I still have appointments I'm going out to on the afternoons. Otherwise, I'm on the phone. And like typically Monday mornings at 9 a.m., I have a team meeting with all the team members to check in over the weekend and plan for the week. We're just doing that via the phone instead of in person. And so Carol's my admin, and we've got a lot going on right now. So I probably talk to her 4, 5, 6 times a day, checking in on, hey, we're getting ready to list this, or, get a contract coming in on this. So just staying in constant communication with each other.
So you can't roll back on your chair anymore and just turn and have a conversation with her. So
Right.
more phone calls. Yet what I'm hearing you say is that you are, I don't know how you increase the amount of lead gen time that you have, and double it, because you're so faithful at that and do it so consistently. What I hear you saying is you're maintaining the same velocity of phone calls that you have been doing prior to the stay-at-home order.
Correct. And the only reason my business is going up is other people have taken their foot off the gas. I was telling you the other day, I was looking at different ways to cut expenses. And so I do a lot of expired phone calls, and I use RedX to get my expired data. And then I use Mojo, the triple line dialer, to make my calls. So I called each one of those companies respectively to see if they might be able to give a little bit of a discount off my bill for everything going on right now. And the message I got from both companies was there was a lot of agents who were calling and putting their plans on a pause or a hold because they're not going to be making phone calls, and that just seemed ridiculous to me that they'd be taking their foot off the gas.
Yeah. So the only way to get the expense reduced was take your foot off your gas, and you weren't willing to do that.
Nope, absolutely.
Worth the return on investment for the amount of business that you're going to get out of that.
Definitely.
All right. So let's talk about that. Where does your business come from?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting variety of sources. So for anybody on this call that doesn't know, I do rental and property management, and there's not a lot of agents in the Chadwick group that offer that. And so I get quite a bit of business from doing rental and property management. And for instance, just in the last 3 weeks, I've listed 10 properties for lease and already placed tenants in 5 of them. And on a recurring basis, I'm currently managing about 15 to 20 properties. And luckily, just from that, there's enough income coming in that covers all of my monthly needs just from property management income. So that's a good source of business. I'm getting a lot of referrals from agents within the Chadwick group, and even agents with other brokerages. I've established a reputation and name for rental and property management, and they know that if they give me a lead, I'm going to protect that lead. And if that owner or landlord ever decides they want to sell that property or purchase another property, that I'm going to redirect them straight to the agent who gave me the referral. So I get a good bit of business from there. My number 2 source is still expireds. Like I mentioned earlier, I use RedX and Mojo to call expireds, and that brings in probably about 30% of our business each year. And then now that I've been here for about 8 years, I religiously call through my past clients, and I probably get another third of my business from referrals from past clients.
So you've got your property management, your expireds, and past clients that are your main buckets of lead sources.
Right. I've
So,
got other sources that, come in, but those are the main ones.
right. I can't go on without asking, how has your conversation with expireds changed, or what are you saying differently now in the conversations that you're having with people who had listed their home for sale and decided that and it didn't sell in that period? What are you saying to them now?
Yeah, I mean, if they bring up anything about the virus or the economy, I just hit them back with facts. I mean, all of these Zoom calls we've been having, you and Rachel and a lot of the other top agents that have been on these calls keep reiterating that the market's still strong here. I mean, going into this, we only had 2.1 months supply of inventory, and we estimate now with cancellations, withdrawals, temporarily off market, things like that, we're probably down to like 1.8 months supply of inventory. So it is an extremely strong seller's market, and the people who are on are selling their properties. And just look at the stats each week coming out of the MLS that, in Pinellas County, 300 properties have gone on the market and 350 have gone pending. There's still buyers out there. There's still people writing offers, looking at properties. So take advantage of this time when you don't have a lot of competition is the main.
And right, and I'll expand on that too. I'm trying to pull the stats up here in front of me. I know that the last time I pulled the stats for the whole county, we had 10,000 that had come on the market and as new listings, and 14,000 had sold. So in addition to people who might be canceling or pulling it off as temporary, the market is active and there are more things being sold than being listed. So that has shrunk our inventory and created this opportunity for people like expireds to now have less competition to get their home sold right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm looking at other sources besides just residential. If people are willing to dip their toe into it. So I'm going to be listing this week a commercial property that's right now a Boost Mobile store. And I'm also planning on listing a property this week that's vacant land. You don't have to do showings with vacant land. So look at the other sources that are out there besides just residential for opportunity.
Right. So you've already mentioned this, and you've mentioned your property management. The fact is that that's been a business that you've been working for how many years?
The 8 years since I got here. I mean, when I moved down here, I didn't know anybody. It was like starting all over again, even though I had 8 years under my belt in Atlanta. I was basically starting with an empty database and had to start all over again. And so needed quick, easy money, and rental and property management is a way to do that, because you can literally list a property for rent, place a tenant within a couple of days, and get a commission check a couple of days later for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000.
Right. And 2 years ago when we met, we bonded over the fact that I have a property management background. That's what I did for 20 years in real estate, 17. And I have a good friend that's in the position I was in, a regional manager for a major real estate investment trust company. And she called me the other day and said, "Hey, have your real estate agents refer their tenants that looking for a place to our apartment communities, because we have places that need to be rented too, and we're willing to pay to have that done." So there's other opportunities within property management for, like you said, quick money. It's a faster process and creates an opportunity for additional income. What I love about what you've done with this is that you've shifted that business source, that source of income, that source of leads, and you've done some shifting from short term to long term. And tell us a little bit about what you've seen in the market and what's happened with some of your investors right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people on this are not aware, one of the executive orders by the governor was that we can no longer do less than 30-day rentals. And of course, we have a lot of properties in our area that we're doing the VRBO, Airbnb weekly type rentals, and now they're not able to do that. So I've picked up a couple property management listings where people said, hey, until we get through this thing, why don't you find me a long-term tenant? And so I'm listing these properties for 6 to 12 month tenants so that they can fill this time. It's not the optimal money that you can make off of a weekly, but at least they're getting income.
Right, right. And what I love about that is that you're paying attention to the market of the moment and where the needs are, and you truly are exemplifying that people need us right now to help them shift in this market and figure out the strategies of getting their home sold or rented or whatever it is. And so you're bringing that very that very important knowledge that there are renters out there looking for long-term rentals, and there's opportunity for them to earn the income that they're used to, just doing it with a different strategy. So you're truly advising your customers on how they can take advantage of this right now to continue to earn the income they're used to.
Right. And I think also with the market the way it is, I'm quickly finding tenants because there's a lot of buyers out there. No matter what we say to them, they want to see where everything goes. I'm sure a lot of agents have heard this over and over again. I want to see, how the market lands, if prices go down, this, that, or the other. So they're holding off on pulling the trigger at the moment to purchase, but they still need a place to live. So a lot of my rentals, I'm not just offering 12-month rentals. If somebody wants to rent for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, until we kind of get through this and we know where the market lands, I've got availability.
Right. So I have gotten far off track in this conversation. So I'm going to bring us back to the questions the productivity committee wanted me to ask. So the question was, where does your business come from? Let's go back to the beginning for you, because some of the people who are listening are new agents. So how did you get started seeing results, and how long until you started seeing the results?
Right. So if we're talking about in the last 8 years, when I came to Florida, and I know a lot of new agents, they move from somewhere else. They don't have really a database of people to call on in the area. And so, like I said, I started with the rental and property management thing that started producing business. And I got right on the Red X and Mojo, started making the expired phone calls. I had nobody else to call but expired. So did a lot of that. And right in the very beginning, before I had any listings, I would ask agents if I could do open houses for them. So I did open houses and started picking up buyers from there.
And how long did it take you to start seeing results from doing those activities?
Yeah, I mean, probably within 6 to 12 months. I mean, it takes a little while to build all that up, but definitely within, after a year, I started seeing results. And then every year thereafter, I almost doubled my business each year.
Very good. And you did that again this year. You doubled your business from 2018 to 2019.
Right.
Right. So one of the questions here are, what challenges have you overcome? And if you don't answer this properly, Drew, I will coach you on how to answer. I'm teasing. I'm pretty sure you'll get to the information that I want you to share. So I'll let you answer it organically first, though. What challenges have you overcome in your business?
So when I first moved down here, this was right after sort of the real estate crash. And just like every other agent, I was struggling to get business and make money. And when I was still in Georgia, my pivot or shift at that time was that investors were swooping in and buying homes for 30, 40, $50,000. And so I had these out-of-state investors saying, hey, now that we bought this home, we need to find an electrician and a plumber and so on and so forth to renovate these homes, because they were either going to flip them or buy and hold. And so a little light bulb went on in my head, and I'm like, well, I don't have a lot of money coming in and a lot of activity during this crash. So I actually started my own renovation company. And so that way I made commission on the purchase of the property. I made money doing renovations and pulled together all of my vendors and resources to oversee the renovation of the home. And then I got the back end of it too, when either they sold it or rented it out, to make commission there. So but it still wasn't paying the bills. So that was part of the reason I had to move down here and kind of, suck it up and actually lived with my parents for a little while until I got things going off the ground again. That's tough to do when you're in your 30s and have to move back into your parents' garage apartment. I didn't have a vehicle. And after I did my first real estate sale, I actually went out and bought a scooter. And so for the next year, I actually sold real estate riding around on a scooter. So,
Wow.
I've been through the tough times for sure, and risen out of it by just putting my head down and working as hard as I could. And after I got another couple of deals, bought a car so I could actually get around in a car. So that was a huge challenge to overcome, from being basically broke, moving back in with your parents, riding around on a scooter, to selling over $10 million.
Right, right. That is a great story, and it shows that you haven't this isn't the first time that you've had to shift in a market and come up with strategies to be present in the market of the moment and offer what was needed at that time. And what strikes me is that you have, through this time, like you've said, you've doubled your business every year, and what that means is that you didn't stop working, you didn't rest on your laurels, you continued to build that business and circle back on the business that you've had in the past to create those long-term relationships. And you've done that with your investors as well. So one of the things that 2 years ago in 2018, when we first started working together, you had built this great portfolio of investors that you were working with to do property management for. And it also put you in a position where you were selling a lot of lower priced homes.
Right.
And so 2 years ago, what was your average price point? Do you remember?
It was pretty bad. It was like about 150,000, 175.
I remember the report we looked at, it was 139.
Yeah.
At one point a couple of years ago.
It was pretty low. Yeah. I mean, I had investors buying $40,000 and $50,000 condos. And so when you and I first started meeting, and you started challenging me to say, okay, what are your goals going to be for the year? I said, well, I look around at the other top agents in our market center in our market, and I'm probably doing twice as many transactions as them and making half the money that they are. And, that just didn't sit well with me. And so I made a commitment to you and to myself that I was going to raise my price point. And so just with that mindset and kind of going after higher, it wasn't that I was afraid of luxury listings or high price listings or anything like that. I think it was just sort of how the property management business and whatever else just kind of put me in that position. And so I was just working with what I had. And so I decided that I was going to focus in on this and raise the price point, and it's gone up dramatically since then.
It's truly an example of what you focus on expands. And I won't forget the time that we were in a meeting with the other ALC members, and they're like, you're like, yeah, I just kind of coincidence, started getting, they're like, no, dude, this was your mindset. You decided and you went after it. And it's,
Right.
I mean, truly, in a 12-month period, you have created that where your average price point is 318 now. And it's not like your investors have gone away. Yes, the market has gone up. That's a huge, you've pretty much doubled, your price point. You've over doubled your price point. I can't remember the stat, and I don't have that in front of me. It's been impressive though to see that jump year over year. So congratulations on that, and thank you for leading by example.
Absolutely.
So right now in this market, are you doing virtual open houses, listing buyer consults and showings? Tell us what you're doing to go on appointments, get listings, sell houses. How has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I hate to say it, but it's just business as usual, really. I have offered up all of those things. I haven't really had a lot of people take me up on doing the virtual things, but I've been doing that all along. I mean, we all work with a ton of out-of-state buyers, so I tell all my buyers, it's not like just now. I've said that, hey, I'm your boots on the ground. If you come across a property you want more info on, I'll go out there, I'll shoot a video, I'll FaceTime, I'll take additional photos, whatever you need me to do. I'm here for you. So I've always had that message, and I just keep reiterating it to the buyers now. With the sellers, it's almost like easier right now, because first off, I think a lot of agents have taken their foot off the gas, so there's less competition of agents out there calling the expireds. And so, I'm not getting the, oh, you're the 20th Keller Williams agent that's called me today, those types of things. And a lot of people are just kind of like, okay, get it listed. I have a quick conversation with them on the phone, and that's about it. Go send them the paperwork and let's get it done. So,
Right.
yeah, it's just moving a lot quicker in that regard.
Right. Absolutely. And more people are probably taking advantage of that virtual opportunity. I think the important thing for people listening and the people who are going to hear this recording is that it's, I think some people don't have that mindset that you can sell property over the, on the phone or over a live chat like this. And one of my first deals was a piece of land in Ruskin that I sold during a hurricane, sight unseen. And I've had 3 transactions closed from that one person that I FaceTimed a piece of land. And so, being willing to go above and beyond in that just creates that rapport with somebody that they see that, like you said, your boots on the ground, willing to do what they need and help them to make these decisions. So awesome. Do you have any examples of the kind of success you're having with virtual? Have you done a buyer's consult specifically, anything like that you can talk about?
Unfortunately, I mean, it's just been quick and easy on the phones. I had a conversation or two, and they said, okay, let's get it done and send them the paperwork. So I wish I had more stories I could tell you about that, but it's just been quick and easy lately. They're just like, okay, get it done.
I think that's the story though. That's the nugget there, is that you're making the contact and they're ready to go. And I don't know if you heard my conversation with Troy. I get to surround myself with all these great men today, earlier today. And that was what I heard from that too. It's truly being there and having the conversations. The people who are motivated are motivated. And if there's an urgency, they're ready to go. So it's truly about picking up the phone, having the conversation, and yes, there's certainly some fears and objections that have to be overcome. At the most part, though, if they're motivated, then they have a reason they're going to move forward right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no holding back, and of course, I am throwing out things like, hey, we'll wear a mask, and I bring hand sanitizer with me, and we'll make it as safe as possible. If we have a showing, I'm going to get there ahead of time, turn on all the lights, open everything up, and instruct the buyers not to touch anything, and just to do a walkthrough. And if they need anything opened up, I'll open it up for them, and then just do a good wipe down afterwards. So it's worked out so far.
Right, right. It has. So, well, good. Congratulations on that. So we've been weaving in and out of your past and your current, and we're going to weave back to your past for a second. So I want you to go back to when you first started real estate. What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, when I first started out, there was a lot of lost opportunity or missed opportunity. Like I said, I joined when my stepdad was already started and joined his team because he had picked up some big investors, and we were cranking out 10, 15 properties a month, and just had a slew of buyers, and didn't have the database in place to follow up. And so if there's any advice I would give, is that treat every lead that you get like gold, and don't forget about them, and just stay in touch. Kristen, I was just telling you a story the other day. I've got a buyer. I wrote an offer over the weekend, and we're in the middle of negotiations right now. And I picked her up probably 3 years ago. She was only looking for like a little $50,000 to $70,000 house. Didn't have hardly any money. And I just continued to stay in touch, put her on a quarterly call plan, put her on some other campaigns, stayed in touch. And then lo and behold, I get a call from her a couple of weeks ago saying that her stepdad had just come into quite a bit of money, and that he would give her up to $200 or $250,000 to buy a home here. And so that she now has a budget of about $300,000. So went out, showed her properties, found one that she loved, made an offer, and we're in the middle of negotiations, and hopefully today we're going to get that under contract. So, just because it's a buyer that may only can afford $70,000 now, you don't know what that's going to end up being in the long run. I mean, she could end up referring us to other people. She could come into money like she did and buy something. She may turn around and sell it a few years later. You never know what sources of business you can get from any single lead that you get.
Yeah, it reminds me. I need Rachel's easel, but it reminds me of this that Jason Abrams keeps talking about. This is the point that a buyer buys a home,
Right.
and then these are all the contacts you make in between that. And this is pretty much, this should be over here. This is the next day. Like they buy the home, and then the next day they're down here, and all these contacts. And as real estate agents, the closer we get to this date of purchase, like this contact, we're like, oh, this is a good lead. The lead is just as good down here. And who knows how many people they have to refer from here to there, and who knows when they're ready to buy that second home. The lead is just as valuable. It's just the timing of when we're going to get paid on it. So, and building those relationships over time is what you've done so well, that here in your 8th year, you are creating this business that just continues to soar. So,
right.
Okay.
And that's why I teach the Ignite class on the database and growing and building your database, and why I've poured so much time into Command and all the technology is that it's the number one thing. I mean, if you don't, every person that you have in your database is not truly a database unless you have an action behind them, and that's putting them on some sort of plan, campaign, whatever you want to call it. And to check in with them at least once a quarter, or if not more often. And that's where the payoff is that you don't truly have a database or a CRM system until you have a task behind every person that's in that system, and a reminder at some point within the next 90 days to give them a call.
Right. So, where do you go next, Drew Carlyle? What is next for you?
Onward and upward. So I told you my goal for this year, personal goal, was to do $1 million a month. And like you mentioned earlier, we're 3 months into it, and I've done $3 million. And if things go right, I should be, at or above that goal going forward for this year. So that's been my focus. Just like last year, it was on my price point. Now my focus is $1 million a month, and I'm doing whatever I can to make that goal each month.
Very good. And you've been focused on it and continuing to diligently work on it, and that's the key there. So how do you manage work and family? I don't want to call it balance, because we all know in the one thing Gary Keller says, that it's not about balance, it's about counterbalance. I'll let you answer the question though.
Yeah, so it is always a difficult thing. And, my wife works full time, so we both have our jobs. Right now, we're stuck in the same house, so she's right in the other room trying to work. And as a lot of people know, I'm a walker and talker, so just trying not to drive her crazy, because I'm cutting through her workspace every 20 minutes on a phone call, walking back and forth. So she's learning how to deal with me, with us both being home right now, and she can't wait until she can get rid of me here and I'm not working on the house. It is a tough balance, because you want to be available to your clients 24/7, but it's also important to spend some time. So the hardest thing for me is to not answer that phone if we're in the middle of a conversation, or if we are eating dinner or something like that, and to take some vacation time. So it is a tough balance, but at the same time, Allison knew what she was signing up for when she got into that. I made it, clear up front that this is, important to me, that I am able to respond to my clients nights and weekends and things like that. And so as long as it just doesn't get out of control, and she knows that any one of these phone calls can mean, potentially tens of thousands of dollars to bring in for our family. So she recognizes the importance of that, but it's just knowing when to answer the phone and not answer the phone.
And I happen to know that you're quite the music buff and like to go have some fun from time to time too. So you do have some. Is there something up on the wall?
Yeah, I've got my Grateful Dead concert.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was Fish or Grateful Dead. So, all right. So, yeah, and I do have to say we are both pacers, and we often pace past each other outside, or normally it's outside when I need some sunshine, and we go past while we're talking on the phone.
Right. I'm excited for the racetrack we're installing at the
at the Treasure Island Market Center. Yes, we're going to be able to do laps. Drew's laughing at me. I got to keep walking. I'm going to get my steps so easily in that place, right?
Yeah.
Very good. So, what are you doing to continue to grow in your business? How are you growing?
Yeah, I would like to continue to grow the team. So I think that's the next step. Is Carol's probably going to be retiring sometime soon, and of course, now that she's working from home, she said she's just going to work until she dies because she can't stand it at home all day just watching the news. So we'll see what happens there. But I would really like sort of a goal for me this year is to start looking for a listing specialist that I can work with and train and make phone calls. Not that it's going to replace me from making phone calls. I'm still going to have that commitment, even if I brought on an ISA or a listing specialist. But I think that's the next step. And then I may also be looking for another administrative person because at the rate we're going now, Carol's getting to the point it's hard for her to keep up. And if we continue on this upward trajectory, she's going to need help. So whether that's some sort of transaction coordinator or probably somebody who's more familiar with marketing and taking advantage of the Facebook stuff through Command and doing some other tech type things and marketing type things.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed about your team is that, we all, the teams that have grown, there's a model. There's this, it's on my shelf right there. It's right down there. This book called The Red Book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And it's actually got a footprint, a model, an org chart on how to grow your business. And you have done that. You restructured this past year where you have the admin in place to support the agents before you brought the agent on. And that was a shift that you made in your business. I think that's brought so much more success to you is because you had the support to handle the velocity of the growth that you were starting to build, and then to be able to bring somebody else on who could also be supported in that way while they did the buy side. So kudos to you for making that change in your business to truly have a great, and you've always had admin support. Even before Carol, you've had that, you've followed that model, and you have, I would say, for the most part, because we all have learning lessons and going through finding the right talent for the team, but you have been persistent and methodical and slow to hire to make sure that you get the right person in place so that you've actually attracted talent that has the capacity and velocity to grow with you.
Right. And it's really difficult. I mean, I've probably hired in the 8 years I've been here, I've probably hired 5 different admins. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, one or the other, it didn't work out. And it's the same with buyer's agents. I've probably been through 3 or 4 buyer's agents. So slow to hire, quick to fire. And unfortunately, I had to be quick to fire on some of them to find the right person. So I've made mistakes just like everybody else.
Yeah, we all fail forward to success. And now you have Carol in that role doing a fantastic job. Love to you, Carol. I see you're on the Zoom. She's not on this picture yet. She's not having this conversation with you yet. I know this is Carol and Drew's success that we're talking about, because you two have been side by side in this, growing this. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Carol, even though I know you have been too. So do you prefer to work with buyers or sellers?
Yeah, I like both. However, I really like to focus on the sellers and get the listings. So that's why I spend so much time calling the expireds is to get listing appointments. I mean, listings is leverage, and so that's my focus is on them. And now that I have a good buyer's agent, I want to be able to hand off as many of the buyer leads that I get to her, and not have to focus on going out and showing properties.
Awesome. The last question I have for you, Drew, and then we're gonna, I have one thing that I want to share, and then we're gonna open it up for any questions. So get your questions ready. You can start, anybody on the call, please start by typing your questions in the chat box. This is a different Zoom room. If you've been in ones that all your faces are on the screen, you're not on the screen here, although you can raise your hand and I can pull you in, or Sheila can pull you in. She's in the background there. So go ahead and type any questions for Drew in the chat box. So my final question to you before we do go to my little slide and those questions is, what Drew Carlyle is your big why? What drives you?
Yeah, I think it's just I have my own sort of idea of what success is, and that's what drives me. I mean, the need to win, and I really want to build a big business, and if I can build a big real estate business, then I can start focusing on other businesses I want to start. But like I said, I had a background in doing renovations, and I built my own home in Georgia almost from the ground up, and I'd love to get back into real estate investing and flipping, but I'm not going to take away from my real estate business now until I have a full team in place where I could afford to step away from there. So the big why is to build a fully self-functioning team, and then I can look at growing and expanding some other businesses.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, and we support you in your big why. It really does. It doesn't matter. That doesn't sound right. Each of us have a different big why. What drives us, what we want to accomplish, and what I love about what you just said. Your business, you're wanting to fund other businesses, and somewhere down there, I'm sure it's to fund this life that you have in your head somewhere with you and Allison. So. Whatever that is, and sometimes saying a big why is like, what's your why for the moment? What is getting you out of bed to dial every day? And with you, I know you have just formed a habit, and you don't feel right when you're not on the phone. It feels like something is off in your life, and I can count on one hand the number of times in 2 years that I haven't seen you on the phone in a day. And it was normally like a court hearing that came up for something that you had, for a I think there was one deal that you had some court hearing for. I don't know if it was something, and I'm like, where is Drew? He's not in the office. You have formed a habit and a ritual in your life, and it is those habits that create our success, and that is what has driven your success. I don't think it's that you've done some extraordinary thing. It's that you've focused your mindset and you've done the daily activity, and it's put you in a place in this time where that activity is continuing to thrive through this very unique world we're in. So I am going to thank you, Drew, for that fantastic conversation. And I am going to share my screen with you right now. I want to show you something. And that is this beautiful slide. And I want to show everybody that this is our weekly sales update. We were talking about stats at the beginning of the call. This is the Chadwick group. So we're looking at Pinellas, Hillsborough County in the week of the 13th through the 19th. So last week, we took 87 new listings in the Chadwick group. That's $23 million worth of listings in the Tampa Bay area. just our group. 162 pending sales for 43 million, let's get this right, basically $44 million in pending home sales, 162, and then sold homes of 122. So 40 million homes sold last week in the Chadwick group. So if you look at those numbers and add them up, we're at over $100 million worth of business happening last week.
Yeah, and I mean, it just shows you, like we were talking about before, that way more homes are going under contract or selling than new listings. So our inventory just continues to decrease and decrease. So this is why you gotta just, make even more calls and work even harder and double down on listings, because there's not a lot to be had out there. And if you get a listing, I mean, look at that. They're going under contract and going away very quickly. And it shows that we may even have less than 1.8 months supply of inventory at this point.
Yeah. And this isn't the entire market. This is our group. This is the Chadwick group. This is the 6 market centers and the 1,500 agents across Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg. So yeah, that tells a big story of what happened last week in our group. That's for sure.
Right.
All right. Well, I love this conversation. I'm going to stop sharing this. Do we have any questions out there? I don't see any questions in the chat group. While we wait for any questions that might come in, Drew, do you have any last thoughts to share?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not like I've reinvented the wheel or I'm doing anything particularly special. I know it's a little bit different with the rental and property management, and we talked about that. And I know a lot of people are probably hesitant or reluctant to get into that part of the business, but it's really just about the consistency. It's just about making the phone calls and treat every lead like gold and just continue to follow up. Basically, I just keep calling until they tell me not to call anymore. And even then I'll still call them back later on. So it's all about consistency, lead generation, lead follow-up, and treat your leads like gold.
I love it. That is a great place for us to end. Well, I have so appreciated this conversation with you. Thank you. It's been a long time coming to highlight what you've done in your business. You are our tech ambassador extraordinaire, teaching all of our agents the command. And Maggie says, thank you, Drew. And just showing our agents what that technology can do. So thank you again for that. I know we thank you a lot. You probably would prefer us to pay you or something, but I just keep saying, thank you, Drew. Thank you. Thank you. And the great thing about that, I know, is that it's taught you how to use it at a high level, and you're starting to see the results in that and saving money by dumping your other CRM and moving forward in your business that way. So thank you for all that you contribute to us and for sharing your secrets with us today. And keep going, man. Don't stop. Don't stop. Yes, thank you, Drew.
I knew you had to sing at some point, right?
I know. I couldn't get out. Candace says thank you, Drew. So I guess they got their questions answered.
Right. All right, my pleasure. Thank you all for coming on today.
All right. Well, have a great one, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.